everyone, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday. I am Bonnie Krebs, creator of Watercolor, the Art Impressions Way. And this week I'm back with another project from the mountain set. And this time I'm using the small one, this one right here. And I'm changing up the color a little bit to create a whole different composition. So I'm going to show you how to create this little tropical scene using those same mountains, just the smaller mountain range. And like I said, we're going to change up the color a little bit. So we're going to need a few things. In addition to the mountain set, we're using a small one here. We're going to use the palm tree set. So just a couple of things out of here. These two palm fronds right here, and then the little palm tree. And then in the foliage set 4, we're going to use one of these two. Doesn't matter which one. You can use the right or the left. And then in the flower set, we're going to use the little filler flower, so the daisy bunch. Okay, and we're going to create a frame around it. So we're going to kind of stamp it into a square, and we're going to do that using some Post-it tape. So the easiest way I've found to do this is to just cut a square like this. So I just cut this on my cutter, 2.5-inch square, and of course you can make it whatever size you want. This seems to be the easiest size to work with for me. So I find that it's the easiest way is to cut a square and trace around it. So that's exactly what I did, traced around it. And now I'm going to take my Post-it tape like this, and then I'm just going to run it right over the top of those pencil lines. And then I've got a nice square that I can stamp inside, and all my borders are protected. This is a really fun little technique to do. And especially if you have trouble with your composition and knowing where it ends. And sometimes watercolor is like that. It's a little hard to know when to stop. And sometimes it tends to just want to run off the page. So this is a really good way to kind of control your composition and keep it in one area. And I think, you know, it's a little less intimidating because it's a small space. So feel free to give it a shot. Okay, so we are going to get started. We're going to start out with the basic image, of course, and that would be the mountain set. And like I said, we're going to change up the colors. So we're going to use a bright purple. So this one right here, and we're going to ink this in the purple first. And then we're going to go right over the top of it with the dark blue. So this is the dark blue, number 565, and I'm just going to go right over the top of it. And of course, like usual, I'm going to stamp this off because I really, really want this to be light in the background. So I'm going to stamp that off, and then I'm just going to stamp it into my composition, probably right about here. So keep it light, keep it very light. So now I'm going to take my brush and dip it in my water and pinch it off, just like we always do. Pinch that off and begin to pull the color out of the lines, and just carefully follow these lines and drag them down. So I guess the biggest thing about the mountains is you don't want to see any harsh lines. You want to kind of blend everything out. And I think I said this in the last video, but it really is the truth that the more you work with these, the more comfortable you get with where the lines go and the formation of the mountain. And they're really, really fun to do. Don't be intimidated by these things. They're really not scary, and just give it a shot. You know, give it a shot and just see what you come up with. And you know, the more you do it, of course, practice, the better at it you're going to be. Okay, so you can see I'm really, really blending these lines out and dragging the color down because I don't want that. I don't want to see a pen line. I guess that's the best way to say it. We want to look like these just kind of fade out into the background. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and put some color into the sky. And I'm going to use a combination of colors. So this is that dark blue. And I'm going to use a light blue also. So this is the number 526. And I'm just going to kind of mix these two together. Of course, on a palette, you can do that. Mix the colors together and get a really nice warm blue for the sky. And really water that down so you can get it really, really light. And I'm just going to kind of brush this in, however. Don't stress out over stuff like this. Just get that in there and you are good to go. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. let's move on to the next step, and that is to put the water in. And I don't know why water is intimidating, but it really is for a lot of people. So I love projects that include water because I want you to try it. And you know what? When you try it, it's not nearly as scary as it looks. It really isn't. So I am using a tropical. This is number 296. It's tropical, but you can use any bright green or blue, or you can mix. You can mix. So a light blue with some green in it will give you a really nice tropical color too. So start out by straight lines across the back and just kind of bring this forward. And just kind of just brush this in, keep your hands straight. And we're gonna just kind of come down to a point a little bit. Now you can change this back in here. So if you bring this in a little bit, you can see how that comes into the mountain. You can make a little contour here, and that also will bring that water line in. So play around with stuff like that. It's fun. Okay, that looks good to me. And we are ready to go on to the next step. And let's go ahead and put in the sand. And the sand is just a warm brown. So this is number 947. Change my palette around here a little bit. And I'm just going to put this onto my palette and just brush this color in. Same thing as the water. Just brush it in. There's really no way to mess these things up. There really aren't. You know, it's a small little canvas in a small, tiny little area. And, you know, you haven't invested that much time in it anyway. So if you really do hate it, just start all over again. Okay, that looks good. So let's let that dry just for a second and come back up here to the sky. And I'm going to put in the little palm branches here. And I'll start out with this one that's going to the left. Remember, it's always a reverse of how you put it onto the block. And I'm using a warm green. So this is a number 177. And I'm just going to stamp this in here. So we're kind of creating this little area that looks like we're in a grove of trees and flowers, and we're kind of looking out at the mountains. So you can just put in as much of this as you want. And I'm going to just put a couple more down in here. And then I'll go to my other one. This one is facing the opposite direction. And that looks pretty good. And you can see I stamped that in there a couple of times. So not 5 or 6, but at least 2. So you get that light to dark. And remember when you're doing these, I don't know if you watched the video on how to stamp these little palm trees, but you want to leave that spine white. So again, stay in each section. So each section is a side of the palm branch. So make sure you leave that little section in the middle open. And just kind of pull that color out on each side. And it doesn't take much water. Always be careful of that you don't get too much water on here, because you know we don't want to lose the lines altogether. We're just softening the lines that we've just stamped. That's what we're doing. Make sure that you have color all up inside here, so that when we remove that tape, you can see that it's in a square. Okay, I think that looks good. So let's go on now to the next step, and that is to put our flowers down in here into the bottom. We're going to do that with this little daisy bunch. And you can just put as much of this in as you want. And then I'm just going to change that color up and put something bright in here. Bright pink. I always think about bright colors when I'm doing a little tropical scene like this. Gotta have some bright pink in there. Just makes all the difference. And just soften it up. Start with the lighter color first, and then go to the darker purple. And just get this in here just like that. Looks good. And then I'm going to add some foliage in here. So I'm going to use that little tiny vine. And I'm using that same green again. And just stamping this in a bunch of times. Just get this in here a bunch of times, way down in that corner. And you can see how that we just brought all of this to the foreground and created this little scene in the background. So fun. And again, make sure that color is, you know, in here along that edge. So when we take the tape off, you can really see that border. Okay, that looks good. And I'm just going to take a little bit of my blue now that's on my palette, just very lightly. And I'm just going to create a little area in here. Just a little bit. Just put a little texture in here. Don't overthink it. And actually you can add a little more color in here too. You can make these mountains really, really blue. I just love the purple tone. I just think that it just seems so tropical to me. And it just kind of changes it up. So you're not locked into the colors that you think the mountain necessarily ought to be. Try to change it up and do something totally different. And I'm just going to add a little more color back in here. And I think the last thing to do is to add our little palm trees in here, which will be so easy. I'm going to use my positioner. I want to make sure that I get them into the right place here. After I've spent all this time on all of this little background, I want to make sure I get this in the right place. So place my shield in here like this. And ink up my tree. And I'm going to use that same green again. And I'm inking just the top of the tree, and then I'll use this warm brown and do the trunks, tree trunks. And just stamp it into the corner like that so that I can see exactly where it's going. Now I don't want to stamp over the top of my little flower, so I'm just going to use a Post-it tape, piece of Post-it tape, and I'm just going to kind of protect this area here, just like that. And I want these to be in the background, so I want it to look like these are way, way back here. And I'm going to turn it like that. And I'm just going to ink this up again because I want to make sure this is really, really dark. Okay, that looks good. Perfect. And now I can remove that, and you can see these are way, way back here in the back. And I can do that again. I can put one in over here as well. And I just need to clean these up, clean these off, and maybe I'll just use the small one. This is how I clean my stamps, but feel free to use a baby wipe or a white damp washcloth, but I'm just usually in such a hurry that I just clean it off with my thumb. And then I have inky hands, but oh well. Okay, so I'm going to now ink just one of these. Just the small one. And the tree trunk. And I'm going to use my positioner again to make sure that I get that little palm tree exactly where I want it. And I think right in here is good. I love this little positioner. It just works like a charm. And now I don't need to re-ink that because I've already had the image stamped on here, so I know it's going to be dark. Okay, that looks good. So now let's add a little water to that. Soften these little palms. Just a little bit. Remember, we're not changing the shape, we're just softening what we've just stamped. Don't do anything to the trunks. Just leave those as is. And I'm just going to put a little shadow in here and down in here. And we are finished with this little composition. So let's go ahead and take the tape off. This is always the fun part, kind of the big reveal. And take this off. Love this Post-it tape, just works so great. And by the way, you can use these over and over again. So once you take these off, I usually stick them onto something and I use them again and again. Okay, and there we have it. So one thing left to do, and that is to sign and date, which I will do right now. And put that on a card and give it away to someone. You're gonna make their day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you all again next week.